welcome back to Inside Gaming Daily. It's the weekend, it's Sunday, we're doing some fun explainer pieces for you. So last week we learned that the 2017 PlayStation 4 hit Horizon Zero Dawn is making its way to PC, which actually came as a bit of a shock because of how protective Sony has been with their exclusives this gen. But if true, this could mean that we'll see the death of platform exclusives within the next generation. Isn't that right, Caden?
Yeah, it seems like Sony is getting more adventurous as the days go by, and it seems like this PC release of Horizon Zero Dawn isn't just a PlayStation Now streaming on your PC kind of garbage. It's a full release on the Epic Game Store and Steam.
Man, that is wild. Holy shit. Not to mention, for a brief moment, Sony had Windows PC listed as a platform on their website for the upcoming PlayStation 5 Gearbox-developed title Godfall, which is a bit different than all the other PlayStation titles that made their way to PC via different publishers, as those titles only have PS4 listed as their platform on the PlayStation website.
Yeah, heck, Sony is even hiring for somebody for The Last of Us Part 2 who has, quote, thorough understanding of current GPU architectures, experience with DirectX 12, Vulkan, or other modern graphics or compute APIs, console or PC programming experience, which sounds a lot like a PC port of that game may be on the way as well.
It certainly does. I know what all that means. I promise you I do. It's the end of an era, folks. Backwards compatibility is on the rise, crossplay is becoming more prevalent, and now platform-exclusive games may be the next casualty in this time of peace between consoles.
But where will we get all our dramatic titles? Where will they go? How will we get clickable titles without drama? What are we gonna do? Will we have to exclusively report on good news?
Alright, Chicken Little, no need to freak out. There'll be plenty of bad news to report on. And trust me, we need that badly. While this may seem like good news for gamers, it's actually a lot more up in the air what will actually come from this, so let's dive into what we know. A little smooth. Ooh. Let's get into it, Caden.
All right, so the original report of Horizon coming to PC came from Kotaku's Jason Schreier, fan of the show, and he prefaced this information with, quote, "This news comes from 3 people familiar with Sony's plans, all speaking anonymously because they were not authorized to talk to the press." Sony did not immediately respond to a request for comment, so we're in grain of salt territory. But considering the announcement that Death Stranding is coming to PC just before its PS4 release, as well as Quantic Dream's Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Detroit Become Human, all hitting PC storefronts last year, that grain of salt seems to be getting incredibly tiny compared to most.
And as we all know, grains of salt already very small. It is important to note, however, that Death Stranding and the Quantic Dream games are not actually published by Sony on PC. Death Stranding is being published by 505 Games, while Detroit and Friends are self-published by Quantic Dream themselves.
That's not the case with Horizon Zero Dawn, however. Developer Guerrilla Games is fully owned by Sony, which means Sony would be the ones publishing the title on PC. But would Sony really ever do anything like that, Autumn?
I mean, I know, that is the walled garden of the ages, but they actually already have done something like that, surprisingly. Ready Set Heroes was published by Sony Interactive Entertainment on both PS4 and the Epic Game Store last August. I mean, sure, it's not one of their big AAA titles, but it is easy to see that release as them testing the water, and it apparently went well enough for them to consider bigger projects. Oh, hell yeah. Exciting.
So the benefits of releasing a standout game like Horizon on PC are immediately recognizable, but let's list them off anyway. New storefronts means new players, which means more money. The game itself no longer being limited by hardware means that we can actually play the previously 30 FPS locked title at higher frame rates and resolutions. And of course, brand recognition. Horizon may be a very big game for Sony, but putting the original in the hands of more players could spell huge returns for the long-rumored sequel, which means that we may actually see Horizon Zero Dawn 2 hitting the PlayStation 5 and then a PC release soon after.
Oh, that's f***ing awesome. Holy shit. That's like my dream. Dude, can you imagine Horizon Zero Dawn with mods? It's already so dope.
Oh god, that's gonna be so awesome.
It's gonna be so cool. Thank you, Sony. But that's all just Sony. That doesn't mean exclusives are dying like forever and for everybody, right? What about Microsoft and Nintendo? The Xbox One suffered greatly last generation because of its lack of exclusives, so surely Microsoft saw that as wanting to turn that around next gen, right, Caden?
Well, yes and no. Microsoft has shifted their entire strategy after the failure that was the Xbox One's original launch. What a disaster. And by focusing their brand on an ever-evolving ecosystem and as a family of consoles rather than a singular platform, their efforts have paid off extremely well.
You ever had such a bad launch that you just leave the company entirely forever? Poor Matrick, oh, that guy. While a lot of their efforts were focused on backwards compatibility and building the Xbox Game Pass service, service, Microsoft did dip heavily into putting their exclusive offerings into the PC market as well. Games like Ages of Empire 2, Gears 5, Sunset Overdrive, ReCore, Killer Instinct, and of course, Halo the Master Chief Collection all made it to Steam. Not to mention Ori and the Blind Forest, which eventually came to Steam and Switch, and of course Minecraft, which is on every platform under the sun, as it should be. I want to play Minecraft on my Switch while also having it loaded up on my PC, and then also having another game going on my Xbox, and also sometimes my phone as well. You know what I'm saying, Caden?
Yeah, hitting that multi-platform goodness.
Yeah, it's the best.
So this idea of having Xbox games and your personal Xbox legacy follow you into the next generation is further pushed by a quote from Xbox boss Phil Spencer when he said, quote, "We want your gaming legacy to come with you. Whether that's your gamer score, whether that's your friends list, all your achievements, your game saves, all of that should come forward so there are no barriers for you as you think about moving forward." So with the Xbox Series X being the true embodiment of the family of consoles mentality Microsoft has been pushing, it's not hard to imagine that most, if not all, their upcoming first-party titles would eventually be released multi-platform, or at the very least on the Xbox Series X and PC.
True, but Caden, you're forgetting about good old Nintendo. Yeah, it's time to dig at Nintendo again. Go ahead and leave your Inside Gaming Hates Nintendo comments now. We'll wait. How long are we gonna wait?
Just a couple seconds. And all right, they're full. Cool. So yeah, Nintendo, we love you, but you're not exactly the friendliest group when it comes to your IPs appearing on other platforms, unless it's a phone and you can cram gotcha mechanics into them and bleed little Pokemon fans dry. Not that I'm bitter about not getting good draws in Pokemon Masters recently. Not at all.
Yeah, Caden, you're like Nintendo's what do you call it when you have a dream and then you come in your pants?
Wet dream?
Wet
Yeah,
dream.
that's the word I'm looking for.
Little bitch.
Yeah, Caden, you're Nintendo's wet dream for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what? I am too. I'm just taking
already,
it.
Like, halfway there. You're like, what is it called when you
I couldn't
have a dream
remember.
and you come in your pants?
Did you just say that to crowdsource the answer?
Yeah, seriously. Back in 2016, over 500 free-to-play fan projects using Nintendo IPs were issued cease and desist by Nintendo's lawyers for having images of Nintendo's video game characters in connection with unauthorized online games that copy the characters, music, and other features. Hold on, how the f is Temtem a thing right now? Like, honestly, how have they not been sued? I don't understand.
Look, there have been monster battling games way before Pokemon came into the fray, but
Yeah.
Pokemon's just the most popular one. Dragon
Yeah.
Quest did it first.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? Caden's coming in with that hot knowledge. Also, Digimon, way better than Pokemon, and I will
That's true.
fight
Yup,
that
that
till
is
the
true.
end of the
Yup.
earth, dude.
Digimon World 3 is my absolute jam. I
good,
love that
dude.
game so much.
Yeah, so good. And the cartoon is like actually a good cartoon. So yeah, you could say Nintendo is more than a bit protective of their red-cladded plumber and friends.
And for good reason, though. If we're going by brand recognition alone, Nintendo was, and still is, the king. Its franchises like Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon are recognizable to gamers and non-gamers alike. So much so that Nintendo is opening up a Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios Japan later this year. And of course, we have to mention Detective Pikachu, the first arguably universally accepted, maybe, video game movie of all time, and it's got a box office of nearly $500 million, so it succeeded.
Yeah, it definitely did. I don't know though, I feel like the Super Mario Bros. Movie will always hold up in some nightmarish place in my child brain.
Super Mario Brothers. This ain't no game.
But while Nintendo doesn't really play nice with other platforms, they do play well with other developers, especially indie devs. Yay, they need a home too. Sony and Microsoft's goals are seemingly to aim for having their games on more platforms to build even bigger brand recognition and sales, but Nintendo is going the other direction and bringing everyone to them.
Yeah, this of course is primarily because of the Switch's breakout success, because as much as you and everybody else, Autumn, liked using a cheap Fisher-Price tablet to play Mario Kart 8, Nintendo couldn't do what they're doing right now on the Wii U.
Hey, I love the Wii U, okay? Don't talk about it, please. It was so terrible and I loved it. And indie devs are loving the attention and of course the moolah that Nintendo is bringing to them. Who wouldn't? In an interview with Time about Nintendo's growing interactions and desire to work with indie devs back in 2018, Devolver Digital's co-founder Nigel Lowery said this: "It became very clear when the Switch came out, Nintendo, who have been really fantastic since, had started reaching out aggressively. They were contacting us, other devs, other pubs, engaging with us at PAX and GDC, making a conscious effort to see what we were up to, and to this day are pretty active in checking in to see what we have coming out, and working to promote our games side by side with their games, which is impressive to see. Also a little bit stalkerish, not gonna lie. Nintendo, take a hint.
Yeah, it's like they're acting out the Netflix series U in real time.
Yeah.
Some of these partnerships with indie devs have led to the creation of games like Cadence of Hyrule, a rhythm adventure game from the creators of Crypt of the Necrodancer. And while it was developed by a third party with a history of releasing their games on multiple platforms, Cadence of Hyrule is published by Nintendo and it uses their characters, so you'll probably never see it on anything but the Switch and whatever Nintendo comes out with next.
So it seems like Nintendo is doing just fine, so much so that they're willing to share their profits so long as you bow down and make Mario your new sexy overlord.
Mamma mia!
But that brings us back as the question of why of this situation. Why are Sony and Microsoft so keen on getting bigger and bigger projects on multiple platforms? And we kind of already answered that, didn't we, Autumn?
Yeah, it's all about the money, y'all! I'm just imagining like PNGs of money falling on me right now. So yeah, making AAA games takes a lot of time and money, and with the prospect of diminishing returns being an all-encompassing fear these days, having a huge project have multiple sources of revenue, from loot boxes to season passes, is really the only way to keep them alive. That is, unless your AAA game isn't an exclusive, right, Caden?
Yeah, last year's Call of Duty Modern Warfare made over $600 million overall in its first 3 days on the market. Compare that to Sony's God of War, which only made $131 million in digital sales in its first month. Sure, that's comparing overall sales to digital sales, but in a market where we've been having growing sales digitally only, it's hard to imagine God of War making an additional $469 million nice physical sales.
Yeah, man, normies are ruining the world, all right? We know you like your Call of Duties. What about God of War? He's awesome and he fights fairies. So having your big costly project releasing on multiple platforms is an easy and non-greedy way to make more money and get your games in the hands of more players. Those are all good things I think people like. All this loops back to a topic we've covered a lot on this channel lately, which is the end of the console wars and the beginning of the ecosystem wars in next gen, right, Caden?
Yep, games industry analyst Matt Piscatella mentioned that, quote, the 2020s will be about ecosystems, not platforms. By the end of the decade, I doubt any company will tie content exclusively to one device. Particular hardware will be a nice to have, not a need to have.
Yeah, and while that still seems far-fetched at the moment, and I mean, obviously people are going to be attached to their consoles for the foreseeable future, Sony tossing their hat into the PC arena is a sign that some of that might actually be true in the future, but with new storefronts and services popping up regularly, it could become too cluttered too quickly and result in a bit of a collapse, leaving only the biggest names to profit. It's kind of what's happening with streaming stuff right now. I feel there's a bust and then, you know, the strongest will survive and we'll see who that is.
Yeah, all that sounds just like console wars too, and less like ecosystem wars. But hey, spin-offs suck anyway, and sequels always rule, right?
You know what, Keaton? I don't think you're right about that one, but I'll let you have it anyway.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest complaints when it comes to the release of new consoles. What about all my old games?
What about the old days?
Yeah, it's a pretty fair complaint if you ask us.
Yeah, truly. You're asked to drop a couple $100s on the world's most powerful console, but the new hunk of junk isn't able to play any of your old games. So what happens then, Caden?
Yeah, so did you actually enjoy any of those titles you loved from the previous generations?